All right, everyone, it is 7 o'clock. Welcome to our September work session. We have a few items on the agenda, but actually I think they're going to go fairly quickly. So we'll go ahead and get started. For awards, presentations, and proclamations, we're going to have one this coming Monday from Taylor. You want to talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. So the name badges I have from back in my time on DDA as chairman were for Don P. Gober. For those of you that don't know, Don P. was a longtime member of our community, passionate advocate of Sugar Hill, a very wonderful person, and served on the DDA for a very, very long time. Unfortunately, almost 9 years ago to the day, she passed away from cancer. Of course, she is the holder of the Don P. Gober Community Plaza behind us, which could not be more aptly named for somebody of Don P.'s passion for her community. And I happen to have two name badges that were given to me when we updated the DDA logo for her. And so she'd always told me that her big dream was to have dinner in downtown Sugar Hill. That was something that she aspired to and wanted to see happen, and unfortunately, she passed before that opportunity. However, carrying on her legacy are her two children, Tommy and Lindsay, and so as a token of appreciation for the Gober family, for all that they've given back, and for what Don P.'s done for our community, I'm going to present Tommy and Lindsay with those name badges that I never got to give to Don P. So we're going to have a celebration of Don P., which I think is appropriate, and it's kind of one of my parting things as I leave council is to recognize somebody like Don P. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Taylor. And I have one as well. We're going to recognize Bill and Mary Harding. They just celebrated their 80th wedding anniversary. Mary is actually 105, and Bill is 98, and he is a World War II veteran. They're going to be here with their kids that are older, but they're a great couple, still healthy and active, and the children reached out and wondered if we would take a moment to recognize them. And so their anniversary was actually yesterday, and we would have been able to do it at work session. So I just went ahead and said, well, let's do it on September the 8th. And so that's it, I think. Yes?
Can we place that as...
Totally. Yep, absolutely. Great suggestion. And then I think we might have a youth council swearing in as well. That's not reflected, and I can't remember where that goes on the agenda, but just wanted y'all to know about that. All right, so we will move on to old business. Art, I'll let you talk about item number 1, which is very old business.
Very old, yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. We did receive some updated information this morning, but it is not ready for discussion. The applicant is still out of the country. He does send his apologies. He is expected back October 10th, so the staff's recommendation is that the request is tabled until November.
That sounds good. Any questions or concerns about that? And I know that we want to officially table it until this coming Monday night, but can we just go ahead and reflect on the agenda that it's tabled so we can let the community know about that? All right, thank you, Art.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next, we'll move on to new business, item number 2. Meg, that's you.
As we know, Mark Daniels was on the Planning Commission up until very recently when he was required to resign when he became a candidate. Mark Daniels is no longer a candidate, and my recommendation is to reappoint him to the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you, Meg. Next, we'll move on to item number 3, and that is the Ridge Lake Park Playground Design Build Contract Award. Troy.
Thank you, Mayor. The item is a request to award a contract for the completion of design work associated with the playground at Ridge Lake Park. We received some 8 or so proposals recently, pared that down quite a bit after a review of their qualifications. And then we have met very recently to make a recommendation to award to one particular vendor, that is Playground Creations. They proposed some play equipment that we're pleased with. It's very high-quality equipment, something very similar to what you see here in two main play area pods for different age groups. And I'll ask Andy to come up in a minute and kind of explain kind of the nature of the design here a little bit. But they also have some swing components in the middle. And we also did ask them to include, all the vendors to include some elements that are accessible. So one of the images that I'll show you in a minute kind of shows some of that. But Andy, if you'll come up in a little bit and go ahead and step through this layout here. It's obviously not, this is what architects and computer-generated renderings do. They make everything flat. So it's not going to be flat, but we're going to kind of tailor it to the site and give it a little bit of area for the kids to play. This also reflects our initial proposal, which had wood mulch, fall protection is, I think, the word we're using. So we did ask them to go back and reprice a poured-in-place surface. So that is a more accessible surface anyway. So we are going to recommend the poured-in-place surface and this type of equipment. So as I mentioned, this is a design-build contract, which means that they'll come out to the site, make sure that we lay everything out in its proper location, make sure it's spaced properly, and then again, the slope requirements that are required for a playground like this. We have some suggested play equipment that we've asked for, and these kind of fit the outdoor nature of that particular park, and it's some that Andy and his team looked at and were pleased with. There are some small shade elements above the play structures. We probably would prefer maybe something a little bit more extensive than that, but that might be a future phase or when we add some pavilion structures to the park itself. The area that we'd originally looked at is a little too steep. It was the area in B identified here, so we shifted down just below the dog park area, and it will be above the pavilion structure, and then there are some significant grade structures that we're talking about adding, which would be a amphitheater style step-down seating area down to the pond itself. So Andy, I'll go ahead and ask you to go ahead and come on up, and he and Curtis and Joe kind of found a good location where it's flat and there's not a lot of grading that would be required. But Andy, anything else? And specifically with Playground Creations.
I think you explained it very well. Our ultimate goal was to try to build a playground structure that was fitting into the elements. That's what you saw, the log, the wishbone, wood pieces. And then we wanted the ground features so that those that could access that area at this particular park would have ground feature elements as well as the playground elements themselves. Spacing-wise and financially, the ramp type stuff, we couldn't get into this particular playground, but I think when we really build the new inclusive playground, that would be a completely different type of structure that we would be building. However, if awarded, if you guys approve, the poured-in-place rubber matting definitely gives a more inclusive feel instead of the mulch, which was more of a fiscal and atmosphere type of look for that particular park. However, I think if you guys approve it, the pour-in-place is the better option for this particular playground. It will give a lot more opportunity for others as well. Any questions?
Go ahead.
Not necessarily for Andy, though, but just discussion on things.
All right. I don't think we're done with the presentation. Are we done?
The only thing I'll add is we'll put together a more complete recommendation for next week. And all the proposals that we did receive were under budget, so that's about all I want to add at this point.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, no questions. Let's have discussion. Yes, Gary.
Okay, so several things, or questions I have, or things I'd like to point out. I don't mind in general the design-build approach, but I think the council ought to have approval between the design and the build to make sure they've gone in a direction that we agree with, potentially similar to this, but it may change during the design. The location, certainly I understand the need to have it flat. The original B location or even in the corner out past A are possibilities. I have a concern the closer we get to the pond, particularly if that shows it going downhill to the pond, that having been at the parks with the kids myself, there's a great potential to get distracted by one and lose another one. And I don't want them to be very close to the pond for potential problems there. Possibly a fence would be an improvement, but if there's a fence, there's a gate, and then the gates are going to be open because of people coming in and out. So food for thought there. If the original location of B or off by A are a problem due to elevation, I have no problem spending extra money to build that up. Pretty much everything in the Atlanta area that's built has site improvements and for elevation, dirt brought in, dirt removed, that sort of thing. I wouldn't, Andy mentioned cost. I don't think we want to limit it to the cost of that and be, penny wise and pound foolish there. But I think we should definitely take that into account. It was mentioned some inclusive features, which I'm certainly in favor of. One thing I believe a lot of us, I think all of us were there at White Oak at that inclusive playground when they did the ribbon cutting on that. And one of the things they mentioned there, maybe not 100% to the degree of the equipment itself, but with signage that could, for instance, someone that's nonverbal or has issues there or maybe speaks a different language could go and point to the different elements and say, basically, I want to play with you on these equipment and that sort of thing. So I want to make sure we consider inclusive elements, but also the signage as well for that. And then I just want to make sure I'm fine with a port in place there, but do we have an issue there with that being exposed to the elements, one in terms of deterioration, but two in terms of getting pretty hot in the sun? Do we need to consider more covered structure than what has been presented there? So there's just some thoughts I had on it initially, but all in favor of doing it. Just want to make sure that we cover any of those sort of issues. Thanks.
All right, Andy, you want to respond to that, or is it too much to respond
I
to?
would, if I can answer a quick question for you. The additional area, or the initial area, which is the one behind the restroom building and that playground, and that pavilion, it's great that you mentioned certain things, because I think we were on the same page when I and others went out there to look at where it was. Even though it's behind that pavilion, it's only probably 30 feet from the parking lot. And so I did not like that spot because of that issue alone, unless we had to put a fence around the playground so that we kept people away from the parking lot. On that back side, if the decision is made to build a wall to make that grade work for the playground, then a fence is going to have to go up as well anyways. So wherever we're at, so when you look at the area that's behind the dog park, out into the middle of the thing, you're probably a good 100+ feet away from the pond structure itself. And so you're pretty far away, even on the closest section of it. If a fence is what's deemed to be proper, that's obviously just a fiscal decision. I don't think it's necessary in that area. You get away from the parking lot, you're that far away from the pond. But I do appreciate what you were talking about and why you said it, because those were some of the same reasons why we moved it to that section that was over there. So, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Troy, do you have any direction from us for, like, maybe some additional, I don't know. You tell me.
I'll provide an update Monday,
Okay,
get to a decision point. Hopefully we'll get there.
okay, appreciate it. All right, anything else on this one? Okay, next we'll move on to item number 4. That is the LMIG 2026 application. Troy?
Yeah, it's time again to submit to Georgia DOT for the Local Maintenance Improvement Grant Program. This year, there are $287,000 available to Sugar Hill to apply for road improvements. We've looked at our current conditions, our inventory, and between staff and the Violetix software used, we came up with these 14 streets that are maybe not worst of the worst, but they're in a grouping that is some of the worst condition streets in Sugar Hill. So you'll see that I think the average I mentioned in the memo is below 40 in terms of the condition of the streets. They're in residential areas, so the public gets the benefit of having some of the neighborhood roads improved. So some of those are in the subdivisions I show there. The total for the application is a little over 3 miles. It's a little bit more than we did last year in the first round, and we do anticipate some additional funding coming in through the Local Road Assistance Program, but later in 26 when we'll see what that amount is and when it's available. So these are the 3 neighborhoods where those streets are located. Laurel Springs, which is right around 2000, where some of the houses were constructed in there. Don't have the exact dates, and that's why I put 1990s on the other 2, ranging from early 90s to mid 90s, those 2 neighborhoods. 3.26 miles for this particular portion of LMIG 26, 287,000. Match from SPLOST will be 696,000, and the total estimated cost is 983,577. That is based on the type of improvements that we typically put in the contract for this type of work. We are doing more full width milling and repairs because of the road conditions rating of these particular roads. So it's not as easy for us to do quite as much, but we're trying to kind of package them in neighborhood packets. So we're doing as much as we can. And then we also would like in 26 to include an additional contract that would look at some more robust repairs on some of the other streets. Some of those that I showed earlier this year are those that are low volume roads. They're in the industrial park serving maybe 2 or 3 properties. One is Commerce, which is the future Sugarloaf Parkway extension. And I think there might be 2 businesses that operate out of that street. So in the street section where they operate out of is in pretty good shape. So still needs to be repaired and one of the lower scoring roads, but we feel comfortable and recommend deferring those 2. So this is the recommendation that'll be on the agenda for Monday, recommending approval of these 14 streets, approval to submit that for the LMIG program.
Thank you, Troy. I've heard there might be an expectation that the governor will do a 3rd round of additional funds, so that may be coming at some point in 2026 as well. But all right, any questions, comments? Yes?
So all these look like good candidates. Certainly the scores reflect that. Can you give us, at least for Monday night, if you don't happen to have now, an illustration of how this affects the color-coded chart that you've been presenting of the red, yellows, greens, of where they were and where it might eliminate some of those reds and kind of what that would leave us in a situation after that?
I was very hopeful that RRR would be able to complete the 25 round of streets. They are working this week before we reran the streets, come up with a number. We can probably impose some numbers in there and come up with a good estimate of what the average will be. But I don't know if I'll be able to ride the streets before next Monday. But
Right, I was thinking more of just, not the grades so much, but just the illustrations before you'd show them, here's red ones, these are all failing, here's yellow. Are we knocking out all the reds in this? Are we still going to have some left? Kind of what will that map look like afterwards? Not graded, but just an idea of, I mean, certainly any that we're going to work on are going to go from failing to should be 100%.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Taylor?
Troy, one of the things that I think we talked about last year when we were talking about this is evaluation of the curb and gutter as well to determine if any replacement needs to be done at the same time or prior to that. Not, obviously not massive curb and gutter, but there's pretty obvious on some streets when curb and gutter is needing some attention, maybe some sections and things like that. Are you evaluating the curb and gutter as well?
We are, but that is a manual process. The software hasn't quite gotten to the point where we can pick
Right.
up
Sure.
condition with that. I will pick up street signs, so, but as a matter of course, we're just replacing the signs in each of the neighborhoods we're repaving streets. But yes, we'll take a look at the condition of the curb and gutter as a part of it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, we will move on to the last item on new business, and that is the boundary line agreement for 1125 Whitehead Road. Troy?
Okay, as a part of the Vets Off Leash design review process, they were going to reconstruct the shed on the back of the property into a detached garage. Haven't gotten to that point yet, but it did require making some adjustments to the rear property line, and also the city benefited from adjusting the rear property line as well to accommodate the gravel access drive that goes back behind it in the cemetery. So after a while, we were able to reach an agreement with the owner of 1125, the new owner of 1125, and the new property boundary is shown on the right with a very narrow easement for the fence installation and for its maintenance, just to give us some flexibility about where the section is going to run on that particular location. It'll help us avoid some trees that we don't want to take down and be able to align it appropriately on that particular section. So the boundary agreement was agreed upon by the owner of 1125, Holiday Vet Corp. Frank has reviewed that document, actually prepared the document. And we also have the lease, the easement, if I said lease, my apologies, easement agreement, which would be a permanent easement on the back of the property for the installation and maintenance of the fence. And both of those are recommended for approval.
Okay, thank you, Troy. Any questions or comments on this one? Seems pretty simple. All right, then we'll move on to city manager discussions and updates. Paul?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to bring to your attention again that next Monday at 9 a.m. would be a special called meeting for our first millage rate hearing for the 2025 tax billing. And then we will have one during the council meeting next Monday at 7:30. And then another special called meeting on the 15th for final adoption of the millage rate. We're still waiting on a final digest, but we had to go ahead and get this thing advertised so that we could be prepared to send out tax bills, hopefully mid-September, late September at the latest. But I know Jane has communicated that to you all about your availability. we will need a quorum at the 2 special called meetings. And that's the first thing.
Can I ask you just a quick question about the timing on that? Because we talked about accommodating the Hardings. Are we going to, do we have a special called before our regular meeting, or is it on the regular agenda? No, it's on the regular agenda. Okay. Good deal. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure I knew that. Thank you, Paul. Sorry about that.
That's fine. We are in the process of implementing our tax collection and policy, and we have been working with Appalachian Mountain Services, a company that has been in business for 25 years. They work with approximately 100 cities and counties around the state, including Duluth, Snellville, Lawrenceville, and Lilburn in Gwinnett County, as well as they do the same thing for Gwinnett County. They specialize in the FIFAs and potential property sales as a last resort. And the cost to the city will be very negligible, maybe $750 to $1,000, but all their costs would be added to the tax bill. They have a $60 fee, and then the maximum fee would be $240 if it has to go to a property sale. I just wanted to give you an update on that, because I know y'all are interested in collecting all outstanding balances of taxes. They were recommending that we proceed with collection notices for any tax liability over $10. We had $150 in our policy, and that is for fairness and equity in how they experience that with other cities and counties around the state. I know Cindy has been doing a lot of work with Megan and others on updating our online tax payment system to more clearly reflect the total amount due, both current taxes as well as taxes owed from previous years. And then we've also updated the tax bills that will go out in 2025 to include the previous outstanding amounts. From year 2021 to 2024, we have $523,000 of outstanding uncollected taxes. That's just 2% of the overall amount that's been billed. So our performance is equal to what the county's performance was, or maybe even a little bit better. So I just want to give you an update on that. And we want to engage them because they are experts on FIFA, and they're experts on the property sales if we have to go to that route. So the third thing I want to update you on is our affordable housing initiative on both CDBG and home. We have received $1 million of that, of our funding from Gwinnett County already, and that's from CDBG funds from 17, 18, 21, 22, and 23. And then we've also our staff is meeting bi-weekly to make sure that we're all communicating and we're all going in the right direction on this, and at a pace that is both reasonable and responsible. The Housing Authority of Sugar Hill will need to be reactivated. We're working with legal counsel to help us on that, related to bylaws and related items. There are 3 members that previously served on the authority that are interested in being reappointed. Tracy Comer, Rob Coleman, and Rosanna Teta. 2 additional members will need to be appointed. All would be appointed by the mayor with an affirmation from the city council. We're also looking to employ resources from the Department of Community Affairs to help with this process, particularly with the ultimate home buyers, to include a home buyer education, down payment assistance if that's needed, first-time home mortgage, home buyer mortgage programs that DCA has, money management, and just as important, post-purchase homeowner education about maintenance. We're also working on next steps, dealing with initial design and aspirational concepts. I know that Logan has been working on that. We will use that to engage an architectural firm that would That would give us the floor plans as well as the renderings, and then those will be used to engage a contractor. And then the site work will be done with one of our on-call firms, engineering firms, and that was done through a qualification-based selection system, which we're required to use under the federal grant program. So that's the update on the home and CDBG program. And I will wait till next week to give you an update on our event schedule. But we do, just briefly, we do have a concert on Friday night. Sawyer Brown and then the Players Guild will be doing its first performance of Mousetrap in the Eagle Theater. So with that, I conclude my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, is that it? That's it. All right, that's all that we have for the night. It's my understanding we don't need to go into executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our work session.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion from Gary. Is there a second? Second. Second from Alvin. All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your right hand. I was worried about Josh there for a minute. All right, we will see you next Monday night at 7:30. Actually, we will see you Monday morning at 9 a.m. for the first military hearing, sir.